Hi, everybody. Um, Welcome to the Canny Office Hours September webinar. I'm Claire. I can introduce myself now. I'll be introducing everybody else in a second, but I'm our head of operations. So while we wait for everybody to join, I'm just going to give you a little overview of what to expect today. As you learned from the email and it says on the screen, we're going to kind of be doing how to get set up in Canny, kind of like a Canny 101. So we'll be talking through best practices and how to make the most out of your workspace. So we'll be getting started in a couple minutes, but I'll just explain the Q&A functionality. So we encourage you to ask questions through the Q&A like chat function throughout the webinar. We have the lovely Sarah here. Her and I will be, mostly her, will be answering your questions if they're kind of easy and we can just get to them quite quickly. We do have time at the end for kind of more chunky questions that we think lots of people will find benefit from. So if you ask a question, we will either answer it live or let you know that we're going to be answering it at the end of the webinar for everybody to hear the answers. Julia, do you want to go to the next slide? Cool. So this is the team here today. So we have Julia, who is our customer success manager. So some of you may not have met Julia before because she manages our business tier customers. And that was really the reason behind this webinar. We wanted to take all the learnings from the very intimate kind of white glove service she has with her customers and bring it to our self-serve tier of customers. We have the lovely Sarah, who many of you may have met. She is our implementation and support engineer. So if you have any niggly technical questions, she's the one who will have answered those and probably solve the problem for you. I think that's my last slide. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to hand it over to Julia and she can take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to Canny 101. Today, we are going to walk through how to make the most out of your Canny instance subscription. So whether you're just starting off or you've been with Canny for a little while, we'll walk you through those key steps to get set up for success. So we'll talk about Canny and how it can support your team. We'll walk through the Canny workflow, how to capture valuable feedback along with organizing that feedback, how to prioritize it effectively, and then of course the most important part too, which is closing the feedback loop with your customers. As Claire mentioned, we do have this little Q&A functionality on this call, so please be sure to leverage that and our wonderful team will be able to answer your questions. Cool. Great. So let's start with discussing what Canny is and how it can support your team. So Canny is an all-in-one tool for collecting and acting on your customer feedback. It helps your team centralize feedback so we can understand what we need to prioritize next and then follow up with our customers automatically. And as we know, feedback comes in from many different places: Slack, email, Zendesk, and it can be really challenging to track and close the loop with your customers as a result of that. And so Canny allows you to bring your feedback all in one place so you can take clear and confident action. And there's many different teams that use Canny as well. We have obviously our product teams who use it to prioritize feedback based on real customer data. We have our sales teams who use it to track what prospects are asking for to better support deals. And then of course we have our success teams who use it to advocate for customers, ensure their voices are being heard. And support teams use it to track tickets and work with product to drive product bug fixes, etc. And there are four main stages within the Canny workflow where different team members can start to get involved. So number one is capturing customer feedback. Again, Canny is your central place for capturing feedback, and you can collect it internally, manually, or automatically. Number two is organizing the feedback. Once your feedback is captured, your product team can organize it better through the use of boards, categories, post fields, customer segments. And this makes it easier to start to spot patterns and helps you get ready for prioritization as well. And then, of course, number three, prioritizing your feedback, which is usually done, of course, on the roadmap. And here we're able to pull in different data attributes to help us understand what we need to focus on. For example, pulling in revenue impact, number of votes, et cetera. And then finally is closing the feedback loop. And so we can do this through the use of status changes, leaving a comment or replying to a customer's comment, and of course, publishing updates in the changelog as well. And this is a really crucial step because this shows our customers that we're listening and ensures that we're actually doing the things that they're asking for. Cool. So let's talk about how we can capture feedback within Canny. So as mentioned earlier, there's kind of three main ways that we can do this. And so number one is internally, and we can collect feedback internally through an integration. Number two is externally, and that's collecting feedback through the Canny portal. And number three is automatically using autopilot. But we'll talk about how to capture feedback internally first. I really recommend setting up an integration for your internal team members to be able to submit feedback seamlessly, because it's a really quick and easy way that allows your team to stay within their existing workflow, and you're more likely to capture feedback internally if you do it that way. We do sync with dozens of tools, but one of the fastest ways to get started is syncing or integrating with uh, Zendesk or Intercom. But we'll zero in on the Zendesk integration just for an example. So once the integration is set up, your team can click into the Canny widget, which is directly in your Zendesk, and you can start to search for relevant feedback. You can add the customer's voice to that piece of feedback, which ensures that their voice is being heard. And also we're capturing that vote so we can understand what's a priority for our customers. And it's a really simple and easy way to ensure that we're capturing very valuable customer feedback without leaving, your support team's workflow. As mentioned, the second way that we can collect feedback is externally, and this is done through the Canny portal. So the public facing page is where your customers can go to submit their feedback seamlessly, but it's also a really great way to start to foster transparency with your customers. So this is what the public facing space looks like. So here we are in our demo space called EcoZoom. And for context, EcoZoom is an eco-friendly transportation app. And on this page, you will notice that there's a little area called boards. Boards are an easy way to help you group feedback into themes. And they help your end user understand where their feedback should live. Also, in turn, it helps your team internally organize feedback as well. So in this case, I have my boards organized by the features of my product here. So let's walk through an example of what it would look like to submit feedback using our EcoZoom demo space. So let's all pretend that we are customers of EcoZoom and we're using their e-bikes and we want to submit feedback on this e-bike feature. So what we would need to do is, number one, we need to select the right board. So in this case, we're going to choose the transportation board because that makes the most sense in this particular instance. Number two is we're going to search for existing posts. So when you click on the transportation board, you will then be prompted to a page where you can start to leave feedback. And so as we start to type in that feedback, let's say the feedbacks add more e-bike parking zones. Canny will automatically search for matching suggestions, which helps prevent deduplication and also allows our users to support existing ideas. Number three, upvote it if it already exists. And again, this will make sure that our voice is being heard, and will also subscribe us to updates on this particular post. Number four, create a new post if no match is found. So let's pretend the feedback's actually about better bike battery. Because that doesn't exist, we can continue typing and then we can submit our new idea seamlessly. And finally, we can also click into the post view to have an overall or an overview of everything that's happening with this particular post. So what's the description of this particular post? Who's commented on this? Any status changes made by the admin team? We can look at the number of votes as well, which is just a really helpful way to understand if our feedback is in the right place, if we're submitting our feedback to the right post. But also it's helpful to foster transparency this way as well with your customers. Finally, the last way to collect feedback is automatically. So let's talk about autopilot. So autopilot does two main things. Number one, it pulls in feedback from tools that you're already using, like Intercom, Zendesk, Gong, and much more. And it scans through these platforms for messages that looks like product feedback. Number two is Autopilot helps with identifying and grouping duplicate suggestions. So Autopilot is able to recognize common themes in feedback and assist with merging the feedback. One thing to note is that any Autopilot suggestion appears in the Autopilot tab of your Canny dashboard, which is separate from the feedback view, which is where any manually submitted feedback exists. Autopilot has two modes. There's the manual mode where you review each surface suggestion. And then there's automatic mode where it will automatically add all feedback to your portal inbox. So that includes, as we mentioned, any new feedback that's being pulled in from different tools or any duplicates that Autopilot finds. And so here is an example of manual mode. So you'll see a thumbs up, a thumbs down. So if you click on the thumbs up, that means you're accepting this suggestion made by Autopilot. If you click on the thumbs down, we're dismissing it. And there's also those three little dots there. So if we click on that, it will help us move the suggestion to a different post if needed. And then this is a view of the automatic mode. So instead of thumbs up, thumbs down, you will see a log of everything Autopilot did. And if something doesn't look right, you always have the opportunity to undo that action. One thing to note too is when you use automatic mode, you can choose which board the feedback will be filtered into automatically. So here's a quick little look at what Autopilot looks like. And so you can see in our demo space here, we're connected to 6 different sources, which is listed on the left-hand side here. We can see that 5 suggestions have already come in through Intercom automatically. So there was no need for me to ask my team to submit this feedback. It's just logged automatically, which is great. And then here's an example of deduplication. So we can see one suggestion is, mentioning Spanish translation. Another message is asking for a Turkish translation. And so Autopilot is trying to group both of these suggestions under a broader theme, which is translations or for multi-language support. I work with a lot of business customers, and I have to say this has been really game changing for my segment of customers. And the one thing that I constantly hear is that feedback has been historically challenging to capture sometimes from teams. This happens. Sometimes we misinterpret the feedback. Sometimes we just forget to log it. We're human. And so this is almost like an insurance policy that like we are definitely capturing this customer feedback that would have otherwise been missed. And it also helps to reduce noise because we are merging the feedback for you. And so for many of the teams that I work with, this is actually one of the most crucial steps in their workflow because it helps them keep up with the amount of feedback without feeling overwhelmed. So I really encourage you to check it out and let us know what you think. But now that we understand how feedback flows through Canny, let's talk about how we can start to organize it. And so there are a few ways you can start to organize your feedback in Canny, but the most effective ways to do this is through the use of boards, categories, and creating a custom post field. One of the most important things to do when starting with Canny is to create a board. You can think of boards like folders or like a filing cabinet. It helps you organize your feedback into distinct areas that align with your product or your team structure. Um, and there's kind of two main ways that we typically recommend setting up your feedback. One is by product features, which is what we were looking at earlier in my cool EcoZoom demo space. And the second way is by type of feedback. And we'll review both in just a moment. But before we do, let's circle back and talk about categories and post fields. So categories live within each board and they give you another layer of organization so you can group your feedback even more precisely. Post fields add even more context, and they are custom questions that you can include on the feedback form to gather specific insights from your end user. So for example, if EcoZoom was to use this feature, they might ask a question like, do you use our bikes regularly? Or where are you using our bikes? And so this helps us understand the context and behavior behind the request, not just what someone wants, but why they want it. But let's focus in on boards again. So as mentioned, there are two main ways that we can set up our boards, which is by product features or by type of feedback. But we'll start by discussing how to organize your boards by product features. This is a really common way to set up your boards. We see a lot of our customers do this, especially if you want to structure them based on how your product is built. So again, we'll use our EcoZoom demo space as an example here. And so again, EcoZoom is an eco-friendly transportation app. And in this demo, you will see that the boards are organized by the product area. So we have a board for transportation, for navigation, community, and sustainability. And these are reflecting the different parts of the EcoZoom product. And so let's say a customer has feedback about e-bikes. Because e-bike is a part of the transportation area, we would need to submit the feedback to the transportation board. And then next we have categories. So again, categories live within a board to help you narrow down the feedback further. So for this particular setup, you could use categories to represent the features within that product area. So for example, within the transportation board, you might have categories like e-bike, e-scooter, shared car. And so continuing with our example, we would choose the e-bike category here to submit our feedback. We also, if you'll notice, we have a post field question in place here. And basically we're asking, where are you using our products? And this is to help us capture even more information on this particular customer submitting feedback. But overall, this method works really well if your product has multiple product areas, each with their own kind of feature or component, and you want to kind of keep things separately. The second approach is to organize boards based on the type of feedback instead. So in this case, you might have boards like feature request, bug reports, feature enhancements. And so again, using EcoZoom as the example, if a customer has feedback related to e-bike parking zones, we would choose the feature request board. Once we've selected the feature request board, we will then choose the category. And so because our boards are organized by type of feedback, we may want to use categories to represent the different product areas. So for example, we have categories for community, transportation, navigation. And so continuing with our example, we would choose the feature request board, and then we would select the transportation category. And overall, for this particular setup, it might be helpful for teams that want to keep bug requests, feature requests, and other types of feedback separate. It's also helpful if your customers are not super tech savvy. It's just a really easy way for your customers to just brain dump their feedback into just a board called feedback requests. But these are just the two main ways that we typically recommend setting up your boards. But that said, there's a lot of important things to keep in mind when you're setting up your instance. And so a few tips that we often share with our business customers are just kind of listed out here. So feel free to take a screenshot or write these down. But we generally don't recommend having too many boards or categories because sometimes it can get a little bit confusing for customers if you have like 10, 15 boards. So try to think about what your major themes or product areas are and try to limit the amount of boards and or options really for your customers. Also think about how many product managers will be triaging the feedback. If you have multiple product managers, often it makes sense to set up boards that align with each person's area of ownership. However, if you only have one or two product managers, a simple board structure often makes sense and will work better. But think about how your customers are going to interpret the structure that you have in place. So if you organize your feedback or your board, sorry, by the type of feedback or by area of your product, is that going to feel intuitive for your customers or might that confuse them even further? Because the goal really is to make sure that our customers, we're making it as easy as possible for our customers to submit feedback. That's the ultimate goal at the end of the day. There's no right or wrong answer. So choose the board structure that makes the most sense for your product, your process, and your team. Once you have your board set up, the next thing is deciding who should have access to them. So in Canny, each board has its own privacy settings. So there are three main options for this. Number one is having public boards. So public boards are open to anyone who has access to that link, anyone with a link, essentially. So this is ideal if you want to gather feedback directly from your customers or community. Secondly, we have private boards. Private boards are only visible to anyone with a Canny admin license. So that means anyone who's an owner, a manager, or contributor. And this is helpful if you want to track internal feedback, or if your team is working on something like a beta, or you're capturing future ideas and you don't necessarily want to make that public yet. So private boards would be a great solution for that particular use case. And then finally, we have custom access boards, which lets you kind of limit who has access to that particular board, like paying customers, beta testers, VIP users, etc. So you can restrict access by email domain or by manually inviting those users as well. So you can set these privacy settings or options up for each board, and you can change them at any time as well. Great. So now that we understand how feedback is submitted, how we can start to organize it, let's talk about how we can start to prioritize feedback in Canny. There are three main ways that you can do this. Number one is using customer data. Number two is segmenting customers. And number three is through the roadmap. One key area to highlight is customer data. Super important. If you're using the Canny SDK or an integration that is already collecting customer information like Intercom, for instance, you can pass useful customer attributes into Canny. And this helps us under things like how much ARR is tied to a request. So for example, if we look at the screen here at dark mode, one of our feature requests in our demo space, we can see 35 customers have upvoted this. And then we can see the total ARR associated with those customers shown on the same line here. You can also click on the voter list. And when you click into it, you can look at the individual customers who have upvoted this particular request, and we can view their specific monthly or annual spend, which gives us a better sense of the potential value behind building this particular feature. Another way that we can use customer data is through segmenting our users. And this is really helpful if you want to focus in on a specific type of user. So for example, you might want to see what your paying customers are asking for. So we can create a segment for those particular customers by clicking into the gear icon. And then once we click into that, we can choose the different attributes to help us create that user segment. We can then search or filter by that segment in the feedback view as seen here. And we can also search for them in the voter list as seen in this little video here. We can also do this in the roadmap as well, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment. So far we talked about how data can help you surface the right feedback, but let's take it a step further and look at how all of this feedback and these insights come together in your roadmap. So the roadmap gives you a holistic view of your feedback, and it helps you start to prioritize your feedback based on product methodologies, based on internal scoring systems, based on customer data. And once these posts are added to your roadmap, you can layer in more data to help you guide your decisions. So here you will see a list of posts in this roadmap. And on the right-hand side, you will see almost like a spreadsheet style view. This is where you can review post details, add your own score, and include any additional context that matters to your team when prioritizing your roadmap. In my roadmap, I have added the number of votes, a segment showing how many high-value customers have voted, and the total annual revenue represented by those voters. You can click here to add a score, and you can create whatever scoring system makes sense for your team. If you're new to scoring and you're not sure where to start, here are a few suggestions for you. So look at the number of votes. How many people have asked for this? We want to look at the annual revenue, how much value is behind it. User segments is also a really great way so we can zero in on specific customer types. What's the impact? So how is this going to impact our customers? Is it positive, negative? And what's the amount of effort involved with building this particular features? One thing too to note as well is you can customize your roadmap view. You can toggle data on and off depending on what matters to your team. And you can also group the roadmap based on different attributes. I personally like to group my roadmap by status because as a customer success manager, I really only care about what's being worked on and when are we shipping this. And bonus for those who are on the pro, business, or growth plans, you can also push roadmap items directly into your development or product management tools like Jira, Asana, etc. And so this helps connect the two teams and ensure everyone's staying aligned. You can also create a rule in Canny that updates the post status automatically. So for example, when a task is marked in Asana as complete, the status in Canny will update as well. And so again, the benefit of this is that we're ensuring everyone is on the same page and is staying aligned with the work that's being done. If you are still trying to figure out the best way to organize your roadmap and set up scoring, hopefully here are a few helpful tools for you. Number one, think about what matters most when you're deciding what to build. So start with what already comes up in conversations. This might be how many people are requesting this? How is it affecting our customers? How much revenue is behind this? Number two is think about how many roadmaps you'll need as well. Some teams make separate roadmaps for each product line or for different timelines, like by quarter, et cetera, which really helps to keep things clean and organized and really easy to manage. Also think about who's going to use this roadmap. Is it just for your product team, or will your sales team and success team also be involved with this process as well? And I think knowing your audience is a really important step with understanding what detail you need to include. You don't need to track everything, just focus on what helps your team make good, clear decisions. One last important piece in Canny is, of course, closing the feedback loop with your customers. You can do this through status changes, replying to customers' comments, and of course, the change log. But we'll talk about status changes first. So first and foremost, where to find the status change, it is on the post level. You'll see on the right-hand side something called status, as shown here in this little photo. So that's where you're able to update your status. And you can also choose if you want to notify the end users who have voted on that particular post as well. And your end users are also able to keep track of the status change in the public facing portal that we were looking at earlier. When they click into details, they can see the status change. You can also reply to customer comments directly in Canny, which of course is really important as it helps your customers feel valued and heard and like their feedback is actually being listened to. And if you're on the pro or business plan, you can also take it a step further by enabling smart replies. If you haven't checked out smart replies, I highly recommend it. It is a feature that uses AI to automatically respond to users to ask for further clarification on the feedback that they've provided. So it just is a great way for your customers to automatically feel heard by your team. And then finally, of course, we have the change log, which is a great way to share what has been worked on, what your team has released. And it's a simple announcement tool, really. It's just a public log of everything that your team has launched. And most importantly, it's a great way to show progress and build trust with your customers. So today on our call, we talked about a couple of different plans. If you're interested in learning more about the different plans that we offer here at Canny, please be sure to visit our pricing page. And of course, definitely reach out to our support team or to myself if you have any questions that are any questions you have or if anything's unclear. We're always happy to help. But that is a quick overview, Canny 101, on how you can start making the most out of your Canny space. Hopefully this was helpful for you and your teams. We'd love to hear your feedback if you have any. But Claire, I think Sarah and I are ready for any questions that you have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. And I will say there was a question that came through twice about sharing the recording. So just in case you missed the answer in the Q&A, we will be sending this recording out to everybody this week along with the slides so you can have all this info for you. So we've had a lot of questions. So thank you to everybody who's been asking the questions. Sarah and I have been feverishly trying to reply. So the first one to start with is, Can you make certain posts, e.g., under review, hidden from users?
Unfortunately, not at this time. Sarah, anything you want to speak about to that? Speak to?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
No, I think we were thinking that we could maybe give a little glimpse of our features that are coming up, Julia. I did mention that right now you could move the post to a private board so that only admins can see it. But that is quite manual in terms of admins having to move everything move everything created directly into a private board and then move it back once it's been reviewed. But yes, Julia, I wanted to highlight new functionality.
We do have some fun new functionality that we are working on and we're really excited about. I guess fairly high level, maybe soon. We're not sure. We don't want to put a timeline on it just yet, but soon you will have kind of internal statuses and external statuses. So stay tuned. You will eventually be able to do that.
And that might also relate to the next question. With so many teams working in the same space, how do you recommend we avoid duplicate work in triaging new feedback?
Mm. One great way you can do this is you can create your own view. And I'll just jump back into this slide here. So on the left-hand side in the feedback view, you'll see there's different ways that you can filter your feedback. So, you can toggle certain things on and off. So for instance, if you're part of, let's say, bug reports, you can just look at the posts that exist within that particular board, and then maybe you only care about what's in progress. So you can look at that particular status. And when you do this, you'll see at the very bottom something that says create new filtered view. And so you'll see here, I don't know if you can see my pointer at all. But under the search bar, you'll see something called bug with like a little funnel. So that is showing a different view. So you can create as many views as you like. So I really recommend leveraging that feature as a way to kind of have your own space. Another option too is setting up an automation as well. So you could set up an automation that says like anytime a new post comes in to this particular board, send it to this specific roadmap. And so obviously create your own roadmap for your team, but it's also a great way to kind of keep your work organized as well. But as Claire mentioned, this great new feature that we're working on will also help to keep work organized and separate as well.
Great, thank you. We've had a bunch of questions coming through. We may not be able to answer them all, and if we don't answer your questions, we will follow up with you via email, but we'll try to get through them. So someone's asking about tracked users. They said, does that mean you can have more users but only track that number of users? I guess, Julia, do you want to explain what a tracked user is in Canny's terminology versus what one of their end users may be?
Right, so tracked user is anyone who has submitted feedback in any capacity, whether it's voting, commenting, or adding a brand new piece of feedback. So that is an individual who is considered to be a tracked user.
Excellent. And just to add to that, if you use the Canny identify feature, which does kind of understand who all of your users are, we only count them as a tracked user when they give feedback. So if you have 100 customers, only 10 give feedback, only Peter. Um, I don't know which question to go to next. I guess we could ask, where do I see users who are notified of a status change? Is there a log?
There isn't a log, but you will be able to see it if you go on the public facing view, and I'll just jump into this slide. Sarah, make sure I'm honest here. Where is that slide? Sorry, everyone. Great. Yeah, so here's kind of like a way to understand if this has been submitted publicly. So that's kind of the only reference, I believe, Sarah, unless I'm missing something. But again, you have the opportunity to choose whether you want to make a status public or not, or notify your customers about a status change. I should correct myself. Sorry. Does that help to answer the question? hopefully.
Hopefully they're not on, we
Okay.
can't ask them, so we won't know. I think this is going to be the last question because we have 1 minute left and we will follow up. Well, I will just say to Rodrigo, you asked about how the score system works. We will follow up with you directly because that's a little bit of a complex question. So the last question goes to Patrick. Patrick asks, how do you decide when to use different boards versus categories for a software product?
When you should use boards versus categories?
Yeah, I guess like if you have different software products, when do you want to split it up into different boards versus assigning categories?
Hmm. Sarah, what do you think? I think that like it makes, yeah, Sarah, what do you think in your opinion?
I think it largely depends on your product and how your team is split out. So, if you expect that you're going to get lots and lots of feedback for one specific functionality, then it might make sense to use a board. And if one team is always going to be reviewing that functionality, then a board makes sense because you're kind of grouping everything for that team. But if you expect that, everything's always going to be the user's not really going to understand which board they're supposed to be putting in, things are quite like intertwined, then maybe using a board makes more sense and providing a category to further filter down is the right way. But yeah, I think it highly depends on how your team works and how your product is set up. If you want more suggestions, like specific suggestions for your use case, you can always reach out to us and we can learn a little bit about how your team functions and then recommend which approach we think would make most sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to echo that. Like, reach out to our support team, and one of us will happily jump on a call. I'm happy to jump on a call with you too, as a one-off. But yeah, just wanted to echo that.
Wonderful. Well, I think that we are at time. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who attended this webinar. Moving forward, we are thinking about changing our office hours approach. The last 3 have been on Canny 101. So we're thinking about getting a little bit deeper into some core topics for the last 3 webinars of the year. So look out for those emails. We'd love to see you again, and we'd love more questions. We really appreciate everyone who asked us questions today. So have a great Tuesday wherever you are. We're currently in Portugal on a team retreat, so we're going to go have some Portuguese food and enjoy the sun. So have a great